ZeroSpace. This decade might be the decade real-time strategy as a genre makes a comeback. There have been a lot of entries in the genre in the last few years, and with still more to come, the 2020s are looking good in this one highly specific way. ZeroSpace is Starlight Studios' hat in the ring. I kickstarted it, so I had access to the beta, and I want to talk about my impressions of it. The solid fundamentals. An RTS has to get this right, and I think ZeroSpace does. Some of the things it adds to the mix felt overly complex at first, for reasons we'll get to later, but spending more time with it definitely helped it sink in. For example, you generate your base resource, Hexite, kind of passively through your expansion-based structures, but you have to make harvester units to mine the special resource, Flux. You can't just harvest more Hexite, you have to go and build to get it. It feels like a small thing, but it took me a few matches to really get my head around it. Could be because the game feels so Command and Conquer to me, what with the building and production bars being similar along the bottom and not on the side, the superpowers, your top bar, the emphasis on massive amounts of units, and the kinds of units too. Somebody played Tiberian Sun when they were younger. Anyway, fundamentals, base building, army making, map control, it all just feels good. I think I took to it quite well after a few matches getting used to all of ZeroSpace's own quirks and additions. Speaking of, the towers are an interesting concept, aren't they? They're kind of like the vision towers from StarCraft 2 with a little bit of the critical locations from the first Dawn of War. I like having something else to fight over that's not just expansion bases, and there's this almost like visual representation on the minimap of how well the game is going for you depending on how many towers you control. The top bar is pretty interesting, although I mostly just used one or two abilities from it for any given faction. Stun Bomb, Infusion, Ritual. So top bar energy wasn't very well explained to me. I think it has something to do with the towers, maybe also generated through combat, Age of Empires 3 Red Alert 3 style, but I'm actually not sure. The little energy bar doesn't have a tooltip, so I can't check. Oh, you get energy by losing units. Yeah, I don't think I saw that explained anywhere in game. ZeroSpace's sort of tutorial bricked on me partway through, so I had to abandon it. If it did say anything, I didn't see it. I think it wouldn't have been as much of a problem if it wasn't for the issues I had with the user interface, which I struggled a lot with. First of all, the faction voiceover is kind of low in the mix, except the Legions. It took me ages to figure out what they were even trying to say, which limited their alert value. And maybe it's just me, but the UI elements themselves kind of bleed into the rest of the game. Everything is slightly transparent, there's not many borders to help define things, there's no flair. Also, something else I struggled with a lot was the way the game handled queues. See, in most RTS games, if you want to build something and can't afford it yet, you can't build it. It's simple. In ZeroSpace, if you want to build something but can't afford it yet, it queues it up and will produce it once you have the resources. And it'll do this with anything, units, buildings, and research. I didn't know it was going to do that, so I spent a lot of my early games very confused about why buildings weren't being built even though it looked like I could build them, their shadow was there, and why research didn't seem to do anything once I clicked on the icon. And of course, this issue compounded itself because something would inevitably be wrong with my flux generation, so I would have to realize that the hard way, go fix it, and spend ages having no flux because it was being spent on stuff I forgot about and didn't realize was queued. Now, I can definitely see the appeal of a system like this. If you already know what you're doing and have a handle on everything, this system seems great. But if you're me, you don't, and you're stuck with trash units because everything's being spent on candles on backorder. So, I played all three of the factions, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna focus on my favorite. It's the Legion. What can I say? I'm an A-mover. The Legion mostly revolves around thralls, cheap massed units that are sacrificed Imperial Guard style to bolster and heal the rest of your army. Their super units, the Terror Tank and the Dreadnought, are built on the battlefield like buildings, an idea I absolutely love, by the way. They're also just really cool units, highly modular too, so they can extend their utility or battlefield capability. The other thing the Legion has is multiple hero units. All three of them serve as opposed to just one, which means you have a bunch of key units with their own abilities to manage, but that's okay, because the bulk of the Legion's army isn't very complicated. And to be clear, that's what I like about them. I slid into the groove of playing the Legion very easily. Okay, look. Look. Just between you and me. I'm not actually that good at playing video games. I've always played real-time strategy games single player, either campaign or versus the computer, because every time I've gone into multiplayer, I've been ripped to shreds, and that isn't a fun experience. I've never been good at it. But that's fine, because thankfully, ZeroSpace offers a roster of different AI difficulties and co-op versus AI opponents. I managed to play a couple of matches of those, although I suspect it's less popular than PvP, since when I was finding a co-op match it took anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes, but the first time I tried to find a 1v1, I had a match in a few seconds. Anyway, it's great! It's really fun! I do miss the talent mechanic that regular multiplayer has though. Without it, it feels like something's missing. I do appreciate the bonus objectives providing team-wide bonuses though. Perhaps that's the concession? In one of the games I played, my partner and I cleaned out the entire map before the last wave of dreadnoughts. It was great! That's the kind of good feeling I live for in real-time strategy, and I'm very glad that ZeroSpace is willing to provide. And if I could have played any of the campaign, I would have, but alas. Maybe next year, Starlance? If all goes according to plan, at the time of this video's publication, ZeroSpace will still be having its demo weekend on Steam. Link in the description. And if you've already played it and you watched this video because you wanted to know my thoughts, I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments. And if you did like this video, stay tuned for when I do this again in December for Industrial Annihilation. Thanks for watching. We're out here playing RTS and Mira's playing Beat Saber. It's ridiculous.